And on the other side, Richmond used to have a huge, stock of affordable units, which we call naturally occurring affordable housing, or NOAHs. There are none right now. Where did they all go?
Welcome to America's Healthiest City. I'm your host, Will Melton, and today we have Sarin Adakahri from Plan RVA. He is the principal data manager, correct title. And we're going to get into it here in a minute. But before we start, I wanted to remind you, and if you have not listened, please visit americashealthiestcity.com and check out the 10-year partnership to make Richmond the healthiest community in America by 2033. America's Healthiest City is an ideas board. It's a website. It's a communications platform, and so much more. So please check out the ideas, leave your comments. If you represent a nonprofit, a business, an academic institution, or a government agency, please take a look at becoming an ambassador and fill out the form today so that we can get your stories on our website. And without further ado, Sarin, thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited about our conversation.
Sure. Thank you for inviting me.
All right. So we're going to talk a lot about economics today and urban data science, and we'll figure out what all that is in a minute. But before we start, I wanted to give our audience members an opportunity to learn more about you. And so we'll start out. When did you move to Richmond, and what brought you here?
Well, I moved to Richmond in 2016. I had a great job at Virginia Commonwealth University, a great center, which used to be called as Center for Urban and Regional Analysis. I don't think it's active anymore, but it used to be run by a really passionate person, John Ecotino, and that's what brought me to Richmond, actually, from Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah, I saw that on your LinkedIn profile, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about bourbon. We're really early in this episode, and this is about health, but you come from Louisville. Do you have a favorite?
I don't. There are so many, but the Bardstown bourbon is always my best.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I have been there. I've done the tour. I want to go back. There's not enough time in a weekend to do it all.
No.
So, all right. Well, in Kentucky, let's talk about that. You were there for how long?
Well, I was there for about 6 years, including my PhD and a year serving the university as a assistant teacher and a researcher. So about 6 years, give or take.
Okay. And then so you moved to VCU. How long are you in the role there? And tell me a little bit about what you were doing.
Well, I was in VCU since 2016 through 2022 almost. I've been in Plan RVA for about 9 or 10 months now. And I was working as a research economist in the Center for Urban and Regional Analysis. It was a center where you would research burning urban issues, mostly focused on urban data, equity, economic development, housing, transportation access, food inequality, and a host of everything that touches people that are disenfranchised, disadvantaged, or any urban issue that you can touch. So we would work on it. Plan RVA, I moved to Plan RVA because Plan RVA is also doing very similar things that VCU used to be doing, but it has a better focus, better resources, of course, very nice team to work with.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. I think one of the things that is important to me in this show is to let the broader public know that there are lots of people out there who are working to understand our issues, understand them better, get clarity on solutions, and then, work to implement those things. And Plan RVA is one of those organizations in our community. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about what you guys do there, and who you represent. And I'll let you take it away.
Well, we represent all 9 counties and local governments in the region, starting from the big 3, Richmond, Henrico, Gushland, Hanover, and Ashland. Charles City, New Kent. I might be missing a few, but we provide information, analysis, um, uh, guidance in planning, helping their local governments make good decisions on what programs, what kind of programs to implement. We also help these localities in long-range planning, short-range planning, transportation planning, environment, emergency management, and more or less some of the smaller jurisdictions who do not have an in-house data analytics team, we provide some of those services too.
So can you speak a little bit about the importance of a regional, planning organization for specifically for a region like ours?
Well, thank you for asking that question. Because its region is such like a intermediate level of government. It's actually not a defined governmental structure. We have local governments and we have state governments. There is no formal structure in between. But think about all the urban issues that we come in contact with every day. None of them are local. Everything is regional, starting with the obvious, let's say environmental quality, air quality, water quality. It's not a local issue. It's a regional issue. It impacts everybody. Economic development, which used to be thought as a local competitive agenda in the past. But looking at how people choose to live, where do choose to work, and how much they commute in and out of the regions, and how ready you are in terms of preparing your region as a whole for big opportunities like Amazon SQ2. So it's not something that a locality can do by itself. It's a regional issue. So economic development is a regional issue. Housing is a regional problem. You cannot limit housing types, housing to one locality. And as I said earlier, when people move, definitely it becomes housing itself also becomes a regional issue. So it is, I think, it is very less understood in terms of why we should go regional for everything. But in reality, everything we can think of, every urban issue we can think of has a regional footprint. And all of us together can solve a problem. Not one locality can do anything about those problems.
You're listening to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1, part of the Mike King Biz Radio Network. We are talking to Sarin Adakahri from Plan RVA today, the regional planning organization for the 9 localities here surrounding Richmond, including Richmond. We just started into housing, and I want to talk about that because we have had a couple of other experts, Javon Burton and Beth Van Turnbull, both experts in the field, and it's a big topic, and it's a topic that I think a lot of people in our region are focused on right now. Why don't you take a moment to explain from your perspective the role that housing plays in sort of the broader urban planning conversation, and maybe touch on some of the challenges that you see, and maybe even some of the solutions that you see unfolding right now.
Yeah, thank you. This is a big topic. Housing is important, I think, to everyone. And in the past 2-3 years, especially since the pandemic, housing has really been a center of discussion because there is less supply, and there is less supply across the board, across the spectrum of various incomes. And again, we have noticed that travel time, commute distances of workers have really increased over these times because many low to moderate income folks are priced out in cities like Richmond or counties like Henrico, Chesterfield. So when you have lower supply, market and high demand, market generally tries to cater to the highest possible income group where they can reap the most benefit. And that's what you are seeing these days is as the market is recovering in terms of stabilizing the supply side of it, it is serving mostly on the high end side of the spectrum, which also means that people living like at even 100% AMI or area median income, 80% AMI, 60% AMI, and the most the lower end 30, 40, 50% AMI, they cannot compete in the housing market. At the same time, and they of course they have to then look outside the region, go to some other slightly affordable markets like the Tri-Cities, Petersburg, Hopewell, Dinwiddie, and so on. And it has really increased in the past couple of years. A commute from those reasons, people living there, working here, which is kind of a waste of time, actually. That is one thing. And on the other side, Richmond used to have a huge, stock of affordable units, which we called naturally occurring affordable housing, or NOAHs. There are none right now. Where did they all go? Well, there has been a lot of turning around, lots of investor purchase of portfolio of housing units. It drives up rent if it is still a rental unit. It drives up home prices if they are remodeled or rehabilitated into better upgraded versions of them. So of course the 80 and below AMI folks are already priced out. They cannot compete in that market. And what used to be a stronger market like West End and Fan, they are now kind of untouchable markets. You cannot compete there. And what used to be naturally occurring markets, naturally occurring affordable markets like the older ring suburbs and some of the inner city areas, they are gradually transitioning into serving the higher end income groups because there is demand. And of course, you supply to that demand that reaps you more benefit in the beginning. And once you saturate that group, then it trickles down to the other groups. So that's what is happening in Richmond right now, which is unfortunate. If you ask me, I mean, part of your question was what can be done. Mm-hmm. There are a few things that probably can be done. To my opinion, many folks who are having problems by meeting their increased property tax burden, those can be helped by freezing property taxes at certain levels. Pre-pandemic, maybe, because it's all a windfall that we don't need to just reap benefits from it, right? I mean, we mean local governments. Folks who are struggling with evictions probably need help. The eviction moratorium is over, and of course, we will be seeing a lot of evictions coming up. Those folks might need a lot of help. And mostly BIPOC communities who have had historically been facing problems buying houses, getting loans approved, coming up with a down payment. Those folks need to be helped with down payment assistance or easy loan options and things like that. So it has to be attacked. There has to be an attack from multiple sides. It's not a one size fits all silver bullet. There is not.
Well, it's interesting to me because I think to myself, if there's all these people on the high end of the market who are moving into the market, those people are spending dollars in this community, and that's creating opportunity that's driving people to come and work in the city, but they can't afford to live here. So there's all sorts of things that are wrapped up in that. Do you see any headway on us actually being able to freeze rates, tax rates for folks who are on the lower end of?
Well, it's theoretical. Like from a researcher's perspective, people like me come up with weird ideas. But is it really feasible? I don't know. I mean, it's political decision. And as you said earlier, this is a regional issue. But then there are at least 5 local governments who are within the core Richmond economic area. So are all those 5 gonna talk same language? I don't know, because they have had historically different housing structure. Some of them are high density, for example, Richmond, going for high density, more small family focused development. Some of the suburbs, Henrico, even Chesterfield, and going for a stable suburban market still. Henrico may be pushing a little bit further with density, Chesterfield a little behind on that. So basically, I'm trying to say is all these localities have very different characteristics in terms of housing types, and to pull them all together into one basket and ask them if you can really freeze it, I don't know if that is a possibility. I mean,
political will, right?
Yeah.
Well, I heard somebody the other day say that poor is a policy choice, and I thought that was really interesting, and it's a pretty big criticism. But I do think that as you look around, it at some point it's a failure. I think if we continue to not serve the people on the bottom rungs of the economy.
Completely agree with that. I mean, I cannot agree more. As you see, I mean, in Richmond, it's very clear. There's a stark black and white, not intentional, but in terms of when you make a map, you can see the West End and the East End, the North Side, the South Side, pockets of them. They're so starkly visible. And you can tell the kind of services these communities have been getting for so many years, be it transit access, be it educational opportunities, parks, or recreation for kids, any in terms of any urban amenities or opportunities. Kids in the East End are a lot behind kids in the West End, which means that through generations, they lose the capacity to get better jobs compared to their peers in the West End. Then that reflects in jobs, that reflects in income, that reflects in their ability to generate wealth, create wealth, and have generational wealth, build generational wealth. And that kind of perpetuates forever. We have seen that keeps on perpetuating if you can't build generational wealth. And as we have seen, it is getting even more. The inequity is getting even larger. The gap is becoming even larger with Richmond. So yes, I don't think poverty is a choice. No one wants to be poor by choice. But there are so many factors that affect you, from simple as having a good housing, living in a neighborhood where you feel safe, moving around, where crime rates are lower, where you get access to good paying jobs nearby. Even if you are not able to own a car, you can still get to a job. Or if you are looking for more job opportunities, you have a good transit option that is reliable and doesn't make you lose the first hour of your job consistently, and variety of alternatives if you missed one, and that all kind of filters down to who is being served, who is not being served. Disinvested communities and children who are there right now, they have a very less probability of going up in the economic ladder. And it's a kind of a this issue has been identified. Recently, there's been a study from Harvard University where they have a socioeconomic atlas where it shows how where you come from defines what you're going to become in the future.
You're listening to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1. We are speaking to Sarin Adakahri from Plan RVA, Principal Data Manager. And we're talking about how everything is intertwined. We went from housing to transit to education, which I think is a really interesting topic because you can pretty quickly move to food from there because you can't get an education if you're not nourished, and that's a whole issue that we're also dealing with. So why don't we go into the food part, and we can keep going on education too, because again, it's so intertwined.
I agree. And actually all of these issues, housing, transportation, food, health, I mean, health is connected to everything. What you eat, what is your educational level, what you feel like you should be eating. Are you educated enough to make a good choice on food? I mean, everything is connected. But coming down to food access, again, I would say the same communities that are impacted with low or no housing, the same community is impacted with poverty, lack of access to jobs, lack of access to good educational or job opportunities, training opportunities. They are the same ones, at least in Richmond region, who are also having food access issues. And part of it is because it's a market failure because of course, food vendors, large, big box grocery stores that we normally the rest of the world goes to, they do not set their foot into these communities because there isn't the turnover. They don't see profit in doing that. And for people living in these underserved communities, they find it difficult to access grocery stores nearby, so they have to travel further. To make matters worse, many of these folks are already in deep poverty. Most of them do not have their own vehicle, cannot afford to have one. They rely mostly on public transit. Many times when you do grocery that far and you do a lot of shopping, you cannot rely on public transit to carry everything that you've got. It's a difficult choice, right?
You also have time that you're losing to go to work and make money for your family.
Exactly. And then you end up going to what is nearby. And what is nearby?
Convenience store.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it also trickles down to health. If you're feeding your child, I don't know, I don't want to pick names here, but a fried chicken for lunch every day for a month, what are you gonna get in terms of nourishment? How is that kid gonna perform in the school? So it's all so much connected: transit access, food access, poverty, housing, fear of eviction, and of course, health probably comes at the very bottom of many people's list, because unless you are sick, you don't see a doctor. For many of these folks who are already impacted, and even if when you are sick, it is of course very difficult for them to see a doctor.
Well, gosh, I live in North Side, and the North Side is only slightly better than the East End as far as redlining and some of the issues that people have suffered from. There's not an entrance to my neighborhood that doesn't have one of those very famous burger joints with the big M. I eat a lot more fast food living in the North Side, and I figured that out after a little while, and it really kind of depressed me. I was like, I'm not on the margins of society, but yet because of my proximity and where I live in the city, I end up eating less healthy options.
Exactly. I mean, just think about how many Whole Foods are there in Richmond City, how many Kroger's or Publix. I wonder where can one go for fresh vegetables in East End? I mean, I haven't lived in East End, but I have been there many times in part of my research. I wonder where do these children go to play, go to interact, go to engage with their peers safely? Where do children get their good food? Where do parents leave their children for childcare? And if they can even work by making sure that there is childcare for their kids. If not, they probably are losing their hours at work just to take care of the children at home. I mean, it's so interconnected, and it's sometimes, when you think about everything in at once, I really don't know how to make sense of all this. How are those folks who are part of our community? They are making things making ends meet. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're trying to do with America's Healthiest City. Hopefully, we tell the stories and turn people onto ideas that they can make work. Before we run out today, I wanted to, just give you an opportunity. Is there anything? There's got to be something that folks can hear at home that is something to be optimistic about in this region. What are you working on? What's something that folks can kind of look to as a way to feel hopeful?
Well, yeah, there is. I mean, the most important thing that people can be optimistic about is that we're talking about it. You know, we're talking about it on a day-to-day basis. This. Thanks for inviting me over for this show. This is also
absolutely.
another place where we can still keep talking. I mean, increasing awareness about these issues. And from Plan RVA, we do this on a very regular basis. We engage with so many different agencies, nonprofits in the region. And I'm happy to tell you that there are so many nonprofits and even some for-profit agencies who want this problem solved, or at least who want to make a contribution towards solving it. And not many regions get that much of public support, like community support around this kind of issues. And we're very lucky to have that. It's a slow process, I agree. But then, as I said earlier, it needs to be attacked from multiple angles: housing, food access, health, education, childcare, job training for youth, uh, crime prevention, or at least I mean, job training, crime prevention, education, youth-related services, they go together. And be able to put them, have them access to good jobs that pay so that they can sustain themselves, start building their wealth. There are many programs in place for BIPOC home ownership, for providing support, childcare support in the region, for providing food-related services in the region. But it's all piecemeal. It's coming together. And of course, whatever we do is not enough. There needs to be more voices, more people coming in to join hands together to help solve these issues. But I feel good about Richmond compared to other cities where I have been to or I have known about, that the community is very focused. They agree that there is a problem and only they can solve it. And that is a great start, I think. I'm not saying we'll solve all the problems by doing that, but it's good to see that your community thinks about it.
Well, I think no matter what we do, we'll never solve all the problems. There are always unintended consequences that we'll be cleaning up after that. We can't, we don't have a crystal ball, so we don't always know. But we're working on it. And I think, I really appreciate you coming on today. It's really imperative that people understand that there are folks that are working on this. I think, it can be very discouraging sometimes to look around, very overwhelming to look around and see the problems. And again, that was motivation for America's Healthiest City. It's like, it's very overwhelming. How do you have it? How do you make a difference? How do you move the needle? And I think tuning people's attention to the problems and, again, feeling optimistic that there's something going on is what we've got to do. So before we go, where can people find you, and anything you want folks to know?
Well, people can find me in Plan RVA's website, planrva.org, and anything related to Richmond region's issues that we talked about, any data-related questions, any mapping, anything, just connect with us. We would be very happy to respond to those questions, queries, meetings. Happy to come to any community events, talk about these issues, our experiences, share your experiences as well. So please feel free to reach out to us, planrva.org.
Thanks for coming on. A little bit of housekeeping before we go. This Friday, Tech for All at ECPI in the afternoon is being put on by Tech for Troops. It's a great opportunity to find out how you can use tax credits this year to upgrade the efficiency of your home. Wanted to give another shout out to something that happened a couple of weeks ago at Teen Summit at the convention center. That was a really awesome day with 500 kids. And several of those kids actually went on americashealthiestcity.com and submitted their ideas on how to make our region healthiest in 10 years. So please go to americashealthiestcity.com, check out those students' ideas, leave your thoughts and give them encouragement, because those ideas are going to live there forever. The last thing is we are coming up on squirrel season. Opening night is sold out, but if you check out gonutsforhousing.com, our sponsor Exponent 21 is giving tickets away all season long. So make sure that you hop over there. The proceeds from that campaign benefit Housing Families First. $20 from every extra base hit of the season goes into their pockets. So lots of things going on here in the city, lots of great things going on. Sarin, thank you for coming on today. Really appreciate your all the great wealth of knowledge. I'm going to have you back so we can keep the conversation going. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.